is unmuted. What does that even mean? Okay. Can you hear us, Christina, hopefully?
Yes, I can.
Okay. That's weird. All right, so this is the Historic Commission and the Historic District Commission for March 23rd. And the meeting is being recorded for the purposes of open meeting law. So I think if we want to skip ahead, I believe you're here from the 11 Cape Road property. We could jump to that in the agenda. So she's not here for the rest of whatever else we're going to talk about.
Makes sense.
Yeah, so I think my name is Dan Byer, I'm the chair of the commission, and we've invited you here to discuss. It appears that a building was demolished at 11 Cape Road with no building permits and in violation of the town's demolition delay bylaw. So I guess now.
So we
figure out what the
hired
steps are.
a company to do it. A licensed demolition company. So our assumption was that they would pull a permit. The company is, I actually have the receipt on my phone.
Yeah.
Anyway, it's a company, they provided us with their proof of insurance, and, you know, I had no idea that he did not pull a permit.
Yeah, I mean, because the issue is it was a historic.
But honestly.
I don't know what condition it was in and.
Oh,
But-
it has been, I owned that, so I'll tell you the
Yeah.
history of this. So I used to own 11 Cape Road. When Phil and I came, my husband's Phil, he's the pastor. When we came to Bethany, the church did not own any property and we're renting in Upton. This property on 11 Cape Road became available, but the lady would only sell the whole thing together. The church only wanted to buy the land. And the church could not afford to buy the land and the house. So Phil and I said, we will buy the house and land, and then we will separate it and let the church buy 15. So we bought it, and then we had 11, and we lived there, and then we sold it to a plumbing company. But we put in there a right of first refusal, so the church could purchase it back if he decided to sell. Because we knew we were gonna grow, and we figured at some point we would wanna have 11 Cape Road. So now I had never had any instruction that property was historic, not when I bought it and not at any point. Was I ever told that was put on a historic? I own 7 Hastings now. Very clear that was historic property, understood that clearly. But I never even knew that 11 was on any. I've never had any, I had no idea.
We started to communicate with everyone on Cape Road in 2024.
So what I think happened is that house does have a staff person living there, but our mail to the church all goes to 15. Everything that they send us goes to 15 Cape Road. So we never saw that letter. We had no idea. Now, I noticed, also, I did not get a letter that I saw. I had no idea that 5 was put on this.
Yeah, I mean, it wasn't that it was put on that, to be clear. All of these, the previous bylaw basically said every single structure in town is subject to this bylaw. We actually limited the scope and changed it to only properties older than a certain age. Because, you know, like if you built a shed that's 10 years old, we don't need to worry about that.
Okay, I
And
understand.
that was the letter that got sent out, was to say, hey, we've created this inventory.
Because like you took the building down, or someone in your organization took down the building and didn't reach out to the town at all, right? Just to be clear.
Well, we hired a construction company. we don't tear down buildings. We hire this company, I'm trying to get the name of it for you. It is BSS Blueprint Site Solutions LLC. And we assumed, I mean, when I hire a plumber, they get we did not, we weren't trying to tear it down ourselves, but I will tell you, it was so unsafe.
Mhm.
When I bought this property, we tried remedying it, we did roofing, when I personally owned it, like I was explaining to him, I owned it first, and then we sold it to the plumbing company, but this had a tree that had grown through it.
Mhm.
It was so badly, this tree root had gone up and had just collapsed one whole side of this. You couldn't secure it because the tree was continuing to grow. And the way it was, we couldn't even block kids from getting, it was so dangerous. Like any kid could have fallen through this. And we tried a lot of things because it was cute from the front. We were like, oh, can we possibly, the front part of it, you could have used for storage, but the back half of it was so badly damaged by this tree that was had moved itself up through this building. And it had in fact sort of tipped the foundation, and it was very unsafe. I mean, it was so profoundly unsafe. And so we said, we have kids in school here, we have people walking by, this is not safe.
Now, with the church, do you pull permits on behalf of the church for work that you do over there?
Oh, yes, of course.
Okay, all right, because
But our plumbers, if we have a plumber, the plumber, like, we pull permits when we do like electrical next door. When we built, of course, we pull permits.
right,
Yeah.
yeah.
Of
Well,
course.
it's just, I think what we are trying to remedy is the fact that we did reach out and apparently did not get connected to the
Yes,
historic value of the property. And even when there's a property that is in stress, it's important for us to be able to at least record.
Yeah, so I knew that about 3 because we had to take down a chimney there.
Yeah.
But I knew 3 was historic property, so I came and did that process. We would have stopped it if we had any thoughts. We had no idea. None.
Yeah, well, I think if you look at the property itself, I mean, you could see there's, this.
Yeah, but it was not designated. I mean, I think all over Massachusetts, there's properties, but they haven't had somebody go and say, this is something you need to go to the historic commission.
I think, what I'm sort of trying to work out is that, I know you know about the permitting process, you're in real estate too, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so, that we all understand, we're pretty, we've thrown out a lot of knowledge there. And then, so you depended on your contractor to, pull a permit, but I'm just kind of like confused as to why there wasn't any communication about that. Because you must know about the demolition, bylaws, because they're in most towns, right?
So I was not engaged in this. Dan did it. He
Okay.
doesn't demolish buildings very much. I was not in the middle of any of this.
Mhm.
We had a meeting where like, this building's not safe.
Right. No, I understand that.
I think that is
like
how-
that your contractor didn't pull a permit and that you didn't question that process.
I would have questioned it if I was the one doing it, but
So Dan owns the building, you don't own the building?
no, this is an organization.
Right.
And we have a person who just manages our buildings, but we don't
So
tear
he's
down
like
buildings.
property
We've
maintenance
never
sort of? Okay.
torn a building down except with 3,
Mhm.
when I was, we had a chimney that was there
Yeah.
and it kept falling and I knew somebody was gonna get killed, clocked or something bad. So I said at the time, we have to, this isn't just go pull a permit, you're gonna have to go find out if this is fine with, because this building is on the historic register.
Everything has to go
Yes.
through the building.
And so then we,
Regardless.
so then we did that, and there was some back and forth, and we came to a resolution. This was just Dan
Okay.
doing what he thought.
Is Dan the property manager?
He does all of our property management, but we've never demolished a building.
Okay.
Even if you do work, though, you have to have permitting for building construction.
Oh, yes.
Construction.
I always feel
So
great
this
about,
would fallen under the same purview that,
Well, I think he assumed we're hiring a licensed, I think this is what Dan
Yeah.
thought. He thought, I'm hiring a licensed contractor, we're not doing it. We do, when we're the general contractor, we always come and pull permits. Like if we're doing something that is a major change or something, like if we're the people who are finding the contractor to do it, but I think in this instance, he knew, we didn't want him demolishing the building because it's not safe. So we're like, we've got to have a professional doing this. And so I think, I'm not saying he's correct. I'm just saying Daniel just assumed if you hired this person, they would have gone through the process. And the historic part of it is a little, it's an aside that it wasn't, like none of us knew, we had no knowledge. And
well, what is the date on the building? Do you know the date it was built? I mean, you bought it. I was assuming.
so it said, when I bought it, it said unknown. It said that they did not know when that building was built.
Yeah, I can imagine that's the case.
No, when I purchased,
Cards are 18.
so if I go into the MLS right now, it's gonna say unknown for the year built.
I don't know, let's look.
But I think a concern of ours is that, you know, and it applies to you and other organizations and the entire community. And when you do work on a building, you have to go, you know, to address it with the building department. You know, you can't. you
I think
cannot
what's so
rely
great
on-
about it and, you know, nowadays, right, because if you go to the building department, the way the viewpoint works is the building department enters it and then we're notified, right? And I think, you know, because all the departments communicate now, so.
Sure, I don't have we're not arguing about it, your perspective.
Right.
I'm just telling you what happened.
Yeah, but I think it's our hope that in the future, you know, everyone understands that things like that have to be permitted. And.
I believe he's gonna come pull a permit and pay whatever he has to, because we told our contractor,
Yeah.
you know, if you're a contractor, you should not be not pulling permits. And if you have some understanding that,
Who's the contractor again?
his name is,
Do you have his contact information?
yeah, I have all of it. I brought that, and I brought, it is, Blueprint Site Solutions LLC, Foxborough, Mass. And it was a $7,500 bill. Does anybody want to get your eyes on
That's pretty great for, he took the whole building down and removed it all.
Do you have a contact person or phone?
it? So do you guys have access to make a copy of something? Because he brought, if you don't, I could maybe leave,
We can
I think we maybe have a copy of this. This was his liability insurance, and this is his license. We always ask for that when we have somebody do work. So that's what was in my file.
We can make a copy if you want. Yeah. If you want to provide us a copy, I can do that.
And, you know, I agree that, yes, I agree that is, actually, it's our, we should have insisted on seeing that before, and I told Dan, really doesn't,
Yeah.
you have to insist on that before. But he's never taken the building down, so he just assumed you call the people who advertise that they do that, and then
Right, right.
You know.
Well, again, had the permit been pulled, we would have been flagged, so that we at
Yes.
least had a conversation before it came down.
Sure,
And at least had some record of it,
Yeah.
beyond what we have in old photographs. But I do believe that it is on the historic resource inventory, and it is in Mendon as well. So any work done on this building in the future should always go through a permitting process. So we can-
I am looking right now to see. I mean, I will tell you, I run the barn and we always come here, get a permit, Board of Health, walk through the process, we do whatever it is
Right.
we're supposed to do.
Well, we thought that there was some miscommunication and that perhaps that the church wasn't observing things because that never came through. So we're like, okay, we know Bethany Church owns the building, how come they didn't, follow
Yeah,
the
honestly and
process?
truly, I really believe we've never demolished something.
I think you have, because there were
What
several
else
barns
did we
on the
demolish?
building.
No, we didn't. That was, the barn that we demolished, we did go through. Tom Hackinson came, had a conversation with us.
Yeah.
We talked about it. It was a big ordeal. Because that removal process, because that barn that was there, we had a big failure. It actually collapsed.
Right,
And he came in, because I owned it. That was me.
yeah.
And I called Tom Hackinson, called the town, Tom came over. Yeah, used the person he suggested do it. So, and that was 25 years ago or something,
Yeah.
but the church has never done it. That's what I'm saying. I did tear down that building.
Okay, all right. Well, I think it's really important to know that building is considered historic. So if we haven't communicated that or you didn't receive it, that, any work going forward, really, reach out, any.
So if we want to get rid of that and build a building on that, tell me about that,
Which lot is this?
on 11.
That would be
So
under
this-
the purview of the demolition delay. So we would have to review and decide whether or not we would put a delay and try to find a way to repurpose the building or encourage you to sell it if, it is one of the last historic structures that stands on Bates Street. And I would hope.
On Bates?
I'm sorry, not Bates. I've gone down the street too far. On Cape. There is a small cluster of buildings that are still part of the original South Mendon historic area.
Yeah,
So, and that would be included.
it would be
in
the
that
green
as
store and,
well. Right, exactly. And we are struggling down Cape Road to keep any part of that intact because it really was almost its own community.
and the buildings were not the same quality, I will tell you.
Yeah.
These buildings are well built.
Yeah.
And the ones there, I've owned them both. The ones there are not well built. And they were not built with instruments that are good. We've had to do a lot of,
Yeah.
just looking and saying, put another rock there, that kind of thing. It's,
Oh, yeah. Believe me, we repair those buildings right up here as well, so we know what it's.
so that is I think it's just a really different, it is probably why you lost a lot of buildings, because they were just so bad.
I think we lose a lot of buildings because people don't, first, it's hard to invest in them unless you have some money. And it's much easier to just buy a lot, take down the house.
Well, because it's zoned commercial.
Oh, yeah, down in that area, yeah.
It's commercial business.
Yeah.
It is not the best use for the property. If the town is gonna zone something commercial business,
Right,
leaving it at home is not the best use for the property.
right, true. And we agree,
Yeah, I
we
mean,
agree.
that's
I
the
mean,
trouble we've
it's-
had
yeah.
in a lot of these.
And they also expanded it so that it's, that little niche right there is business.
Yeah.
So they, in fact, changed a lot for that particular area.
I mean,
And the grain store's in Hopedale though, right? So that's
It
not
is,
Minden,
yeah.
yeah. So, but I think that that is part of the difficulty with saying, you know, is this going to remain a house forever?
Yeah. well, when zoning was established in Mendon, and that was established as a commercial area, the people that put that together had no idea of any historic value of that area. And of course, we had watched it over the years get chopped up, divided. There's some atrocities down there, if I might say so. And I think you're probably well aware of, some of the things that have occurred down there, that is very unfortunate. It's poor planning, it's poor,
And actually, in terms of value, what they've done is they've made it impossible to even sell it as a house.
Yeah. Because
we have a massive, it's a massive building right behind us.
Yeah.
And we have, this is like, it seems to me like, and I sat through all of those meetings, it seems to me like there's very little, and I listened to all those people behind that house sharing the whole, what is gonna happen to our property values?
Yeah.
Because and as a real estate agent, it's gonna change.
Oh, yeah, sure.
Whether that whole road can do, so obviously towns always have conflicting interests because they need revenue and they need.
Yeah. But they need planners that can figure this all out.
I think a lot of
On
towns.
schedule.
A lot of towns, even with planners, like I have been engaged in a property in Needham, and it is insane
Yeah, it is.
because of the same thing. What the best use for the property is, that homeowner is not gonna get that money for it. Because the zoning doesn't match the historic designation.
Yeah.
I don't know. For us, we use that as a staff member's home for a parsonage. So for us, it's not a big deal.
Yeah.
And I suspect that one of the kids that lives in that house just took that letter and threw it away.
Yeah.
If it went to 11 Cape Road, we asked, the wife, do you guys have this? I never saw that letter,
Right.
I wonder if it'd be best for you guys to do have the mail.
It should have been sent to the address that was on the tax record.
Yeah,
So
your
it should have
tax
been
record.
15.
So we are tax
Unless it was
exempt,
sent after.
and so we don't get any tax
But with the
information.
town, the town should still have.
The town always sends everything to 15
Yeah.
Cape Road.
Yeah.
When did you,
And so 15 Cape Road is where all of them, and that's one reason I wanted to come and say, could we find a way for all town communication to go to 15 Cape Road? Because we have a business office there.
that address is listed.
But I would imagine it would have gone
Yeah,
there.
but who,
Because that's
so,
what-
I'm trying to think of
it
a timeline, there was a woman living in the house, and it sold, because I worked for the water department, we read that, I'm just trying to think of the timeline. But I don't know
So,
if you guys still owned it then, and she was just the tenant?
no,
Or
no,
it was a
I
floor?
owned it.
You owned it?
And then years and years ago, I sold it to this plumbing company, to a guy who owned a plumbing company.
Yeah.
And he did take down a bunch of little buildings.
Yeah.
And he
That was
And
this
he
one.
built the barn that's on the
Well,
property
2002, so, yeah.
and redid like the garage,
Right.
and then we bought back from him the property as is. But the barn that got taken down, I took down as a homeowner because I had 2 little kids and my kids, it was, right out my back door. And you guys, here's what the problem was. They had like a barn for the cows, but the cows would come underneath.
Yeah.
So there was no floor and it was like 30 feet down. It was so dangerous. And as a mom, I was stressed. But I called Tom, he came over, use these people. It probably wasn't done, like, it's very, very different now. That was a long time ago. Because my kids are in their 40s now. And they were little.
Yeah.
One of them was in kindergarten at Hopedale. So. I'm looking now to see when the transfer happened. Hold on
Yeah, no,
one
I
second.
found it, so it was 2002, so we sent those letters in 22. We would have pulled the assessors, and we would have had to make mailing labels, is my guess, because we sent like 400 letters.
Yeah.
But
When you issue the mailing label, it goes to the,
it would have come from the address the assessor's office has on file,
which would be,
which at least right now is 15 Cape. I assume that's what it's been,
pulling it from.
but I don't know, I think, at least hopefully going forwards, we can at least understand.
You think it went to 15K, not 11?
I think it should have.
However, the assessor
4
has
years
it.
ago.
I mean, this says 11 Cape Road right on it.
Yeah, that was the letter I sent, so I put
Yeah.
that, but it was mailed 15 Cape, because I,
Okay.
Yeah.
that one I know, because I have a certified letter, that's where we sent it.
The labels that come through come from the assessor.
Okay. What does the assessor have the year that was built?
1885, I believe, so I'm pulling up the mail slip that's still on my wall. Just make sure.
I feel like that house might be older than
15.
I
1885.
believe it is, yeah. I think
She
I
says
think that got
1885.
put in there
and
at some point because I think this house was built way before that because of the attic.
This says,
The
I
attic
can
is,
ask Patrice, I think it was 1840.
Patrice says 18, well, her site says circa 1885.
So if you go back and like really do the deed research, I would be surprised if it wasn't earlier.
So, and we've done the familial research, which would indicate that it was much earlier than 1880. That we know who moved from the house down the street up into this house. And
yeah, I think that house just looking in the attic is much, much earlier.
Yeah.
Much, much.
So where would you ballpark it at? 1800s?
Maybe 17.
Yeah, that's what we were thinking.
I would say probably more, I would lean more toward the late 1700s maybe.
So
Because it's all hand hewn, but very poorly done. And I am in a lot of houses, a lot of attics, and I have seen a lot of buildings, and I am, the way this is built, I think in the 1800s, they were doing things very differently, they had better tools. This is like,
Let me count on it. My house, I've been, like, my house is 1830, 1820, and it ain't that great.
you were the mom, but.
but yeah, but it's not
No,
like,
no, it's still, I'm not disparaging them in any way.
the attic of this house has you can tell it's had some modification, but it really, it is very old boards. I mean, nothing like my house here,
Yeah.
which is from 1880, my house.
I think a lot
Seven.
of dating the homes though is they recycled materials continuously. So the timber could have been cut on X date, it could have been repurposed. Like I probably have 5 or 6 iterations of repurposed timber in my house. And from the ones I've been in, it's pretty common in this area. Like, so you may have had a large structure. They decided, oh, well, we need to reinforce, we need to add, so they take the timber. and
Oh yeah,
remove
you
it.
can
Yeah.
tell, like, my daughter owns 166 Millville Road.
Oh, that she
Yeah,
was beautiful.
and that house has brick, that got brought from somewhere. That is not brick, but that was a brick kiln.
Right.
That
It was
whole,
right across the street, was the kiln.
yeah. And those people operated it. But you can tell that house has had stuff that just got brought from somewhere to
Whether you would resell brick,
Yeah.
like my house was the bake house originally, and it
Yeah.
blew up, and then they rebuilt it, and the bricks went to the records room, the bricks went to the historic building. So like, then that was very valuable materials, then labor was, they'd sit there in the winter and clean the brick and reuse it, so.
Yeah, it's very different. We demolished different than they did, for sure, because they were
They
trying
just throw
to.
everything in the trash and in the landfill, and for them, it was valuable resources they repurposed.
There is a video of Mila Fair, who lived at 35 Cape Road. And she recounts a fire on Cape Road where the kids were all woken up in the middle of the night. It was a barn fire. And they were all up on the roofs of those houses trying to put the fires out because the embers were blowing and burning their way down the street. So there's a very good chance that maybe barn boards were used to repurpose.
So our house had a fire at some point.
No kidding.
Yeah, the 11, not this house. Oh, this
Yeah.
one did too, but 11 Cape
Yeah.
Road also had a fire at some point.
Yeah.
You can see in the attic.
Wild. So, well, I mean, I think one of the losses for us and for the community is it just puts a hiccup in trying to establish the story, the historical, growth of certain areas. And, if you have any photographs, I mean, I had taken one a long time ago when we were doing the letters. I had taken one of that side building in 12/12 windows. You never see them anymore. And they're all gone and they're all in landfills. So I was just very taken. I think at the time it was bunting. It was really cute.
Are you talking about what we called because that used to be a store.
Yes,
And it
yeah,
had it was the butcher shop, and it had a big, this wide of a door and I tell you, I fought for a long time guys, how can we fix this? How can we, but we were gonna have to, I think we had like 4 estimates for fixing it. It was like 250,000 or something, which we could not afford to do
Yeah, no,
that inside building. It
I
just,
understand that. That's
and this tree was just, and currently there's a garage there and there's also a tree deciding to swallow that up.
it's amazing.
The roots are very big, like it's crazy.
Yeah,
So for us, we use it as a residence for our staff, for a parsonage.
yeah,
The value of it, I don't know what happens to the value of it if it becomes something that cannot be sold as a commercial property. That changes the value.
yeah,
And I have both the perspective of landowners should be able to get, like none of us want to be told, well, yeah, you can't get the value for your home that you,
right.
nobody
Yeah,
wants that, that's not so that property was zoned by the town to be a business.
Correct.
I mean, we can't dictate what goes on inside the house, right? It could still be a commercial property. You just have
Yeah,
to
but
recommend it.
nobody is gonna wanna use this house. there's too many quirks. Like we have done really very little to it. It's been, since I bought it, it's been a 2-bathroom home, but like the bathroom upstairs was probably done in 1930 or 40, something like that. And the downstairs bathroom was, I don't know when they did, I think they did it when the old lady in the house needed a shower. I have no idea if they permit, I'm suspicious that nobody permitted that bathroom, but it was done a long time ago. This was, we've owned it for 35, well, I owned it first 35 years ago,
Right.
and then the plumbing company and then the church. I don't know. But I think if I were to put that on the market, somebody would come, they would apply to demolish it, for sure.
Is it a non-profit owned space? So there's a church own it?
Yes, the church owns it.
Okay, and so is the church looking for like a real estate gain by reselling it?
So churches are always wanting to protect their property, just like the town would want to protect their value, like they're also not, we're not talking about selling it though, we're not trying to sell it. I'm just curious about what the process would be if they were.
I mean,
And Phil and I will not be pastors here for long. We're in our, we're old. Phil's 71. And,
so is the church declining and they're looking to liquidate assets?
no. What, I'm.
I guess I'm trying to understand like what the future trajectory of the building sort of is looking like, why there's discussion of like, are they going to sell it?
I'll tell you why, because pastors want to be able to have a housing allowance so that they can own property because they can't build equity.
Okay,
The parsonage model for pastors makes it harder to get pastors. Because imagine if your job said, you can work at this job and we will give you this housing and the value is this. And it really is, because it costs money to live here and the value, but you're not building anything for you and your family.
well, I think
And that model is a dying model for churches. That's not a big, we always have staff pastors there.
what's just interesting is I've worked for years before my current job as like an estate manager for particular organizations, or I worked for the trustees for a while, and they do offer housing. And so I guess the way I looked at it was that if you're provided housing, your salary is not going towards a mortgage, so you have a greater package of money to invest in the stock market or in bonds or in T-bills. or
Save
something.
up money and
Yes,
another house.
Like you focus on investments rather than the maintenance and equity.
Maybe,
building a
but
house. I
nothing-
mean, that's what I did.
But nothing grows value like owning real estate. I mean, real estate
Except for
is.
Apple stock and.
Well, that's right. But and also being the boss of your own property, because we don't allow them to do the thing, like, they have to ask, can we have a dog?
Mhm.
They have to ask, that's just the reality of it. And so if you're asking why that would be a question we had, it would be like, well, what's the highest and best use for that property? And if we were to grow our, currently we've capped our school enrollment because we don't have any more room. 11 is the only place you could put another building on our property. You couldn't because parking is a very big, we use a ton of our property for parking, and then the rest of the property we own is behind our property, and that has some wetlands in the back. So really not suitable, it's not a great, it would probably be a conservation conversation, but it also probably would change all of our neighbors if we were to build there.
Well, you have a gigantic building that managed to get around those issues. I would be surprised if he would be okay too.
Yeah, but we don't have the funds that Blue Water Group had, and they do that. There's a lot of places Blue Water Group has done that. And they come prepared for that.
If the church got into that kind of positioning, would they consider giving the house away for $0 if someone moved it?
Oh, sure, absolutely.
So there's a bit of optionality there if you could.
Oh, of course, that building, I would hate to see that building destroyed. It's very, the front of it is the old portion.
Right.
The back of it, I'm not sure, I believe the back must have been done when the lady that lived there.
Nobody in their right mind would do this without making additions. It's get like subsequent things off the back of it, yeah.
I think she needed to
Yeah.
live downstairs and all the bedrooms were upstairs. It was very strangely laid out.
Yeah.
So I think that property, you could move the front part, I don't know about the back part.
But you probably wouldn't want the later additions, you just want.
Well, the later addition though, I think was like 1900s, I don't think it's that. This was built in 1945 and it's on the thing, the barn at Hastings. So I mean, yeah, I don't know, we're not trying to do anything with it. For right now, it's staff housing and works fine, keep youth pastors there, that kind of a thing. They asked me to ask that question. So,
Yeah, so, and to be honest, that building would be perfectly preserved. In whatever, from the perspective of its historic value, we would consider it perfectly preserved.
Yeah, but for us, because 11 Cape Road, the density thing is the biggest issue. So you would have to go and get permission not to have, you'd have to modify the density.
Right.
You would have to say, can this lot accommodate more
Right.
in order to preserve this? Because we don't care about preserving, we would have no interest in putting something that close to the road, like that's not,
Right.
or knocking something down,
Yeah.
we don't have
Well,
any
and I
interest in
think
that.
as long as you can communicate that to the powers that be, that, when you're looking, if you're looking at this, that we need to expand or what have you, that, the town would like to retain that, is there a way to work with the land that you have left to accommodate your needs?
I mean, it's a 1 acre lot.
That one is, yeah.
Yeah, but because it's a 1 acre lot, it's a separate lot, so you still have property lines.
Right,
And you still have setbacks, and you have all of that in your density.
Yeah.
So all of that matters to when you're doing planning. So I will definitely tell them, this is not a this year conversation for us.
Right,
And it's not a next year, but it might be a conversation it's a 2-year thing. And I will say, if Phil and I are not pastoring here as senior pastors, we will probably remain as partners. But, the next person that comes will be leading whatever the vision is that they
Right.
have.
Right, which is important that we communicate with you now.
Yeah,
Clearly we didn't connect several years ago, but if we can connect now and say, okay, just, let's open the lines of communication. These are things that we need to talk about together as a group.
mm-hmm.
And then obviously, as long as, the permitting is done and you're aware that, this was a slip and.
Oh, sure, I mean,
It's just crazy to me, like, that nobody even in the town picked up on this. That was a pretty big building.
And also generally, when the contractor provides you a quote for demolishing the building, he includes the lines broken out by line item with the permitting cost and the date the permit will be submitted and the copy of the permit.
Yes.
So we demo buildings in Cambridge all the time and this big long process.
yeah, well, we've not demoed buildings, so.
Right, but I mean, it's
should
just
know.
good for you to be in the know.
Yeah.
That if you're thinking about expanding, if you're thinking about, other alternatives, that, you have facts that you need to have to move forward. It would be wonderful, and there's no requirement, but if you have any photographs of the building that was demolished, or even the structure that still stands, or whatever comes down the pike, if we can record the historic features, you may remodel or just, knock out a chimney or whatever, but anything that you can do to preserve, even if it's in photographs, is
Sure.
very helpful to us.
Sure.
And then it can help us kind of make the pieces fit together.
I do think one thing that would be helpful for people is that most people are not, you guys are very engaged in what the processes is for historic commission or building that is historically valuable to a town. Most people, it's just, not something they're really thinking about
Right.
very much.
Yeah,
And I'll be honest, real estate agents always say, don't buy that, it's historic property.
No, we don't. There's real estate agents that don't know what they're doing.
Well, I always hear it said from real estate agent. I personally have always purchased historic properties, so, and ones that are on the, I think
in a local.
7 is actually in the national, right?
Yes, national
Yeah.
land.
That was the other thing, was
Yeah.
to make sure you're also aware the properties on Hastings Street are part of the historic district. Which
Yes,
has different requirements that require,
Yeah.
even modifications would need to come through that process.
well, I got a question for you. You guys have to approve my paint color?
No, so there are specific exemptions.
Okay.
And if it's on the website, there's a whole flow chart. There's also an opportunity where you could submit that permit and have a document that says, I'm repainting, and we say it's not applicable, so now you have that, if you wanted that record. But
The
things
reason
like
I'm
color
asking
paint is
is-
exempt.
Because we operate a property in Sudbury, and I have gone through about 15 meetings with the town.
They're much more particular.
Yeah.
They like Salem.
And it was really unbelievable,
Yeah, we have-
because I went to meeting after meeting where one person was missing and they couldn't vote. And it really cost us quite a bit of money.
Yeah.
And it was also pretty rude, I thought,
Yeah.
because after a while, you're doing your best to cooperate, and it was, and eventually they, just had the one person who, I'm not sure what the issue was, just one person was concerned. That they finally, and this was not the color of the building, it was the color of the sign.
Yeah, one of the things when they did the historic district was to, some of those exemptions were kind of basically baked in the bylaw up front to, focus on what they really were concerned about regulating and let other things go. I think-
Signage is in there.
Yeah, but the
color
design
your
of the sign.
Yeah, the color of the building, like.
Like, I think your sign actually may have come to us, but it was the content, which we can't, what you put on the sign is none of our business. We just care about, what it looks like.
Illumination,
Yeah.
because it's in my window every night, the bank sign.
What about 3 Hastings, because that building is concerning.
So the historic district, I don't know when, I gotta look at the exact date, but everything on Hastings Street is within the historic district and subject to the current, anything going forward. I think it was like 22 when that was adopted.
So I would tell you that 3 Hastings Street was owned by John George Metcalf, who the history of this town would not.
No, he's the
exist.
doctor.
Yeah,
Yeah, I know the history, I have the narrative in my possession. But I am wondering, like, that property there's a lot that's gonna, like, in the next 10 years, there's gonna be things.
Which one is that?
It's right next to your property.
so
So you guys wanna buy it, is that what you want?
No. Oh, that's across the street from me.
We own it. We own 3, 5,
Oh,
and
you do
9.
own 3.
So we own 3, 5, and 9 Hastings, and then I personally own 7. I bought 7 because the owner of 7 was the electric company. And we were struggling with managing there was a lot of debris in the back and and we're trying to have the barn, and and then he decided he was gonna sell. And rather than not have some ability to maintain and manage to have just some cohesiveness with the property, I decided personally to buy 7, because the church did not want to go and purchase that. We own large property in Northbridge, and we have properties, and we do our Happy Place, which is the program for special needs students and adults, which we operate. 5 days a week, and it's a free program, and that's in Northbridge. So we have that building to maintain. And then, you know, we have a store in Sudbury and here, and it just, so we were already renting from the electric company, the greenhouse.
The, you know, A.S. Jones.
AS Jones, yeah.
Right.
And so for us, it was like, if he's gonna sell it, it would be better if one of us buy it. And Phil and I, our children had, our last child had left home, and we were like, just sell the big house, buy that. Honestly, I've loved living there. It's been great.
It's Seven, you live at Seven? That's a beautiful house.
I love it.
I don't know anything about this one.
And we've done almost no modifications to that home because it was really beautiful.
Yeah, and Jones didn't do it either. It was amazing.
I think that was their office. I don't know if somebody was living there or.
It was his
I
office.
didn't gut it.
Yeah.
It was his office, and I'll tell you something, the fact that I'm living with an alarm system, you can't cook bacon, you can't cook anything, it's not fun. But I will tell you, it's, that house probably has not been modified since the 40s.
Yeah.
And we really just cosmetically changed it. It was beautiful. There was not brass on all of the kitchen, it was dirty and it was poorly used, but we did almost no modification, just cleaning and flooring, just sanded floors. Like the
Yeah.
boards upstairs were the wide board, beautiful.
And those are the things that we lose when we allow the history of this community to just get demolished.
And I have
We
the
watch
big
them go every day.
Indian shutters. I have the real Indian shutters.
Wow.
The entire downstairs has Indian shutters. It's really, it's something else.
Yeah.
So anyway, that's how we ended up there, because I did not want Jones to sell that. And then we have a landlord we don't know,
Right.
and it just made sense for me to buy it.
Sure.
So I did, but people get very confused. Oh, do you own the church is not Phil and I. We do not own 3, 5, and 9. That is owned by a church. Phil and I actually own 7. The church owns 11. The church owns 15.
Is the church eligible for any grant money?
So typically a religious organization, I'm not saying they're not eligible. I don't know of any that would be a partner with a restoration of a property or something
Right.
like that. I'm not sure.
They are few and far between, but I do know that there are some out there. And, you are in a very curious position of owning a lot of historic homes of high historic significance to this community. And so unfortunately, we're very protective of those things that are still standing because we watched everything.
Have you guys ever been inside 3 Hastings, any of you?
No.
The white building?
The house across the street from you?
1-story cape.
Oh, the little one
To
with
the
the
right.
monument, with the one that has is it behind the Willowdale restaurant? That one?
No,
I
right across the
wanted to
street.
show Joe my phone.
Oh, that one, no, I have, sorry. Goodness.
So that property, you guys, has the back end of it. I can tell exactly that was the original house, the back part. But it's just, we have done our best to repair anything that, if a board comes loose, we repair it. We have painted this year, we
You've
painted
done a great job.
the back of it. But honestly, that property is, it is,
It's
it's
got the
old.
water in the basement, doesn't it?
No, we dug
doesn't.
trenches and,
Oh, you.
not trenches, but we
channels.
just literally dug like this deep of one, and we no longer have any water in the basin. It's quit
Yeah, 'cause
going there.
most of the houses in that little square were on the high water table, so.
Well, I really apologize that this is how this got handled. I know it wasn't our intent. We
Yeah.
literally, we we always work to do permits and we try to use companies that are reputable.
And we want you to know that we are here, so if there is a question, when you are tackling something at 3, and you need to discuss it with the district, get to us early. Start the conversation early so that, if it comes down to, we really need to demo this part of the building, we get, whatever it is, let's talk and let's see what we can salvage, and let's see what we can do to help
Well, I
you as
haven't-
well.
Demoed the back part of it, even though probably most people would have, because I just think it's the cutest thing I've ever
It
seen.
really is cute, but I can see why you might demo.
Because when you walk into it, you guys, it is like being in the 1700s. When did that get built? Like, when did that, we know for real when Metcalf built that, right?
Which.
Let's see,
1840?
it has to be sooner.
1800, she's got it as circa 1800.
Yes,
Okay.
I would say probably late 1700s,
Okay, me
if
too.
not earlier, yeah.
And it really looks like that if you're in
Well,
it.
again, if you want to share photographs, we would love that.
Yeah, sure, I'll take some pictures for you guys. There's some very cool things there.
Yeah.
Yeah. And you guys should think about doing like a Christmas walkthrough. Like I would open my house.
Right now, because we are.
Yeah, I would open my house. My house, for sure. Anybody could come see probably wouldn't want the upstairs, but sure.
We did that one year at Friends of the Library.
Yes.
I know they did it in
Hopedale.
Hopedale.
Here early next year.
Oh.
They did it in Hopedale through all those beautiful houses
Oh,
on.
wasn't that amazing?
Yeah, I did that
Yeah.
tour. It was great.
Yeah.
So, but I mean, you live, You're-
I am restoring, so it is not
Always ready.
I'm having repointing.
Your house is
So it is
your
not.
house is a great house, right?
Yes.
Didn't I meet you one day when the noise was going on and on
Oh,
and on
that
and on
noise,
and
that
on?
noise happens all the time.
It happens so
Drives me
bad, it's so
crazy.
horrible. It's the school's alarms, they just
They
go,
they
they go on and on all night
all
long.
weekend,
All weekend.
all day,
It's horrible.
all night.
Just the police, they should do.
Yeah.
I call them,
Me
they call
too.
the superintendent, the superintendent comes, they shut it off, it goes back on, they call them, and it's just, it's actually awful.
So
It's
it's
so-
like auntie system.
I will say these superintendents.
Guys, the noise
Yeah,
is
really,
incessant,
awful.
like, it's like,
And it echoes.
yeah, it's
And
so bad.
Listen,
that combined with the motorcycles and the people playing Bob Seger, I just wish I I wish I had a cannon mounted in the front of the house. Like, I'll do a historic cannon.
I actually don't have any of those complaints at all.
Wow.
It doesn't bother me.
I'm
to-
closer to the road.
Yeah.
And the lights.
Yeah.
It's the light.
Because everyone's pausing there.
They stop at the light.
Yeah.
And their music is blaring, and I just look at them like, come on, like, are you not a citizen, are you just a jackass, like, I don't know. Yeah,
Yeah, but I would love to see something done about that noise.
it's awful.
It's so bad.
Well, because there are noise ordinances on the books from Mass DOT, they refuse to enforce them, sorry, on my soapbox, like, it is noise
The town is
pollution.
proposing a noise bylaw.
Well, you
so I
know what
think it may wait till the fall, but it is coming at some
Well,
point.
what they've done in Rhode Island is they put up a noise meter and it reads your license plate, automatically sends you a ticket. Because they've had enough. And it devalues the property, so your property's worth less because it's a noisy street. Anybody who's adjacent to this property, their property value goes down because, oh, that's a noisy area, full of noise and, also, like the studies show, from the elementary schools close to heavy noise, the children have lower grades.
Oh.
Yeah.
Really?
Because environmental sound and light are pollutants, just like.
Well, I tried to say that
Yeah.
to the town of Mendon, that I was gonna have an entire year of this noise pollution while my kids were trying to learn, and they did not get to.
Well, the new research is pretty, it's not ambiguous.
Boards here.
it shows lower, you know, lower
And I'm
grade
gonna tell you, when that building was being built behind us, you guys, they had promised us they were gonna put up a noise buffer.
If they didn't.
Not one ounce of that happened. They did not do anything that when I went to a meeting, they talked about. That was built. Also, the water situation.
Talking about Cape Road right now.
What are you finding with the noise? with the
Well, they're not
trucks?
operating. They don't have any
The trucks
trucks.
that like shake my house.
They don't have, that building is sitting empty. No, nothing's happening in that building. No, but it's not wonderful because
I think she's being facetious.
Because the people who live over in the properties that they built on Talbot Farms, no, and then the other, property, which off of
Edward,
Bay Street
yeah.
and all of that, Edward,
All of those guys.
all of those guys literally are having a negative
They were taking-
impact to their property
Of course they
values.
are.
And the fact that the town sat with us and told us basically to be quiet in our meetings and would not allow, you know, and the
Yeah,
fight.
did you get through the meeting about the development they want to put on the corner?
No, because
Oh,
honestly,
because I just lost my mind and I.
because honestly, after I sat through those meetings, I just said, I don't have any faith in these meetings.
Adjacent to Founder's Park, that big lot, they want to put a shopping centre and a bank, and I sat through that, and they were like, oh, it won't affect traffic, and oh, it won't affect the elementary school, and oh, it won't affect this, that, and the other, and oh, we won't do light pollution, we won't give exemptions for signs. I'm like, you're full of crap. You don't enforce any of the rules you have on the books now.
They are far too many. to
Yes,
list
is
it.
it, like, is it corruption? I mean, what is it?
But also, guys, when you have books, when you have laws on the book, for instance, we have a school here, and there is a sports park here, so the soccer field's here. There's a school here. And they've applied for a permit to put a marijuana dispensary. And they were granted the marijuana dispensary and were granted an exemption. And that is not right, because the state says don't have it by a school within a certain number of feet from a school and a certain number of feet from from a playground.
Is it because it's a private school, they found it to be?
That would be
Is the state
serious
specified?
for the town, because that would be considered discrimination.
Right. No, I just didn't know if there was something like that in the law.
No,
I forget
it was.
the exact.
It was because the town, the person who was the treasurer at the time looked at me and was like, we need the revenue.
Well, it's an absurdity because they don't pay enough. Like, you have to run all the services there by the time you
I
have.
said, there's like a dispensary on every corner.
Yeah, but Abe,
Yeah.
at the time, who was the owner of that property, had conversations outside of the meeting that I was at, because those people all knew each other, and, you know, 5 people showed up to say, this is very concerning that you have both of these things, and you're just gonna completely ignore it. Like, what is the point of us
What's the
going
point
to
of the
meetings?
law if
And I
they're
forget,
always?
they met the law though, there was some technicality or something like, it was off by a foot, there was some reason.
No, they measured from the interior of the register
The
to
store.
to my property. And it was 1 foot off.
I think, okay, that's what it was.
Does that make us
Just
feel
right.
like, you know, do they really believe that anyone's gonna think when they're making laws that that's what somebody meant? It is not. That's not.
Believe me, I think we're all fighting the same, you know.
And so that's why for us,
Common
we
ground.
just kind of were like,
Common
okay,
ground.
we're just gonna try to have church. We're just gonna love people, give out. You know, we served 900 people last year in the crisis center. I have 435 student kids in the Happy Place program. We employ 18 special needs people at the greenhouse cafe. We have
I have to go in.
oh, it's so great. And we have something called Room in the City, and we provide free housing for families. We work with UMass, we work with Boston Children's. and always with their emergency room social workers. So we provide free housing for families that get to Boston. They have an emergency, they don't have anywhere to stay, and we're short-term, we're not long-term, we do it free. But the way we do it is to sell stuff in that building, and that's how we do it. And we don't take any money from the state, we don't ask for any money from anybody, we don't do big fundraising. We go there, we work hard, we have our store as pretty as it can be, we provide a clean environment, and we're just not gonna get into, like, we just decided after that Blue Water thing, we're like, no, they don't, the town has no interest in, we were just shocked by it. We couldn't believe the process of it. It just seemed insane. And especially when they had also done that with something we had a genuine concern, which was marijuana. People coming to get marijuana.
And then leaving high,
And
driving down
leaving.
the road.
It just seemed,
Smoke.
it just seemed like, and we already had 3 or 4 in the town. I couldn't understand why this is not any need. Like,
And
what
if
are
there
we,
isn't a need, no.
what are we trying to?
Well, they
accomplish?
eventually go out of business because it's not a growth industry, you know, I mean, there's a certain
Right.
constituency.
He said it's already
that
gone
will
out of business,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
That location is closed. I don't know what's the next thing. Before, so are we, because I think we shouldn't, if she leaves, we shouldn't keep talking about it. So is are we good with this matter then? Are we considering this closed? Is there further discussion to be had?
Yeah, we'll
I mean, I think
write you a letter, you
permit,
know.
the
and
permitting process is physically done with delay. Permitting is the town's problem.
We'll follow up with the perm.
That's up to Joe Erickson.
Permitting,
He wants to handle that.
but it would be important for you, for the church, to know that, you know, we've had this meeting, you know, we think you know, this is the path that we're gonna take, and, you know, that in the future, this is how we'll, you know.
What do you mean this is the path we're gonna take?
Yeah, we're gonna find out why a permit wasn't pulled.
Oh, I think he just didn't pull it.
Yeah, and
The
he has
contract
an
was-
obligation.
His
to do that.
Massachusetts licensure is contingent on his following those.
Yeah, does
procedures.
it? Is it, it's a Massachusetts license?
Yeah, he has the, construction supervisors.
That's,
Yeah, so that requires him to pull permit.
I don't, he's not unrestricted.
as near as I can tell, that individual has never pulled a permit for anything.
I
This
just
wasn't
wasn't,
getting
yeah,
it.
there's no permits in the system for him, and he's only been in business from 2025, so he's probably gonna play, he's
Yeah.
probably gonna play, I didn't know, but I've been to those classes, he does know.
That's it,
Yeah,
right.
that's
Like,
why I
the
gave-
license, we all
He
know.
gave you a low bid offer, because he's young and new, and he knew better.
This is why it was such a great price for a general of a
Yeah,
village.
that's very, very low.
175. I don't have that hanging around.
I mean, we were just trying to make sure kids didn't, it was really bad.
Yeah,
Well, too, like if you're taking it down, like, and there's kids around, like, you have to think, like, was there asbestos in the building? Was there lead paint?
Yeah.
Was it
There's so many
area
houses that
properly?
analysis should have been done preemptively.
which, I mean,
Yeah, they did just.
we oftentimes have to let old buildings go, but, you know, we work to get a record, you know, of the facility, you know, we get to see, you know, what the situation is, and, you know, we work from there, you know. we-
Sometimes the materials can be salvaged too, so you can have a salvage company
Right,
come in and take all the historic wood out, take all the historic fixtures and hardware out.
Yeah, we got a quote for that, and it was like $12,000.
Well, a lot of times people would do it for the salvage, right?
Yeah, like the architectural salvage company.
Yeah, they'll come in,
they'll
they
take-
have charged you.
But then they're
think-
gonna sell it,
I
yeah.
think we tried that route. I think we called some and said, what would you, we were not trying to sell it to them, but and
Right,
there was a lot of, this building had probably had termites for a long time or something. It had a lot of damage. It was not good. The only thing that was good was that big door. That was the massive door, the French door.
it was a livable space inside, am I correct?
Oh, no.
Meaning at
Never.
one time. did
No,
it
no,
used to
no.
be
This was
inside?
always just, it was a store at one time.
Okay.
It was a store. It was like a butcher shop. That's what we were told by the old lady that we bought it from. that this used to be the Minden Butcher Shop. At the green store, this is what she said, the green store left from there and went to the green store. But who knows, I mean, she's a very old lady.
Yeah, that would make it a very old building.
Yeah, so, I mean, you know, I will tell you, my husband's from Texas, and he's like, what on earth are they talking about? I have no idea, what is it? Like, they don't try to keep anything in Texas, they're like, bulldoze it down.
Nothing's old in Texas.
And they don't like, he has no, like, he's like, this is horrible, we have to get rid of this, this is very bad, it's very broken. You know, so even at our house, he would, like, you know, tear everything out and put something new in if I let him.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I'm not gonna let him, but,
We get it, we totally understand.
so, yeah, we have asked him to remedy this, the contractor, I would say that. We called him and said, you know, you did not pull a permit, you need to do whatever it is you're supposed to do.
Yeah, it is important for him moving forward.
Because we paid you as a contractor.
And I'm sure you paid permitting fees.
I have no
Well, no,
idea.
but if they're not on the quote, then,
You had the quote, it was just like one number and it was.
I, just from here, I can say, oh, that's.
All right.
Yeah, and you know, I'm gonna go back to Daniel and say, Dan, you really have to, like, if you're ever, normally, when we build something, it's such a big process.
Yeah,
It's not like this, like you have you have architects.
right.
So typically, we've had architects in the middle of this.
Right,
Anything we've done, we built from scratch.
Does the state require you, because you have a school, does the state require you to like test the soil and all of that, like around the school or anything, like the water? So, because for me, like, that would be my concern. They just,
So
if
we
this
are,
guy was inexperienced and he took.
we
the
are
building down.
public water,
Okay,
so the state doesn't
right, so
We
you,
actually
deal with
do,
that.
because I'm the clerk of the water board, we do extra testing, because
Okay.
that's like our only school on the water
right, so
system.
you
Yeah.
are checking
So
that.
there's additional like
Yeah.
copper sampling that's of the water.
And when we built our building, we had also testing, yes.
Yeah.
So we have the same requirements as anybody.
No, I was just thinking post them taking down a building that has been there since probably the late 1700s.
I mean,
It's
like, there was
probably
no
got
paint on it,
years
so
of-
I don't know
Usually
when
there's
they,
like a whole due diligence process, because you have to find the cesspool, that even if it's been filled, like identify it on the map, find it.
well,
in the
actually,
well
that
supply.
was very easy to identify because it's a brand new, not brand new, but it's a fairly new septic
So
system.
it had a new septic. See, those are the things that, like, when you're gonna pull down, you've got this whole discovery process of like delineating the septic, delineating the water supply,
Yeah, I mean-
delineating, all these
Yeah,
things.
I mean, we know where all of that is, so Dan probably just said, yep, that's this, it's very clear where it is, because we have a design.
Yeah.
And it's obvious too, because there's a big thing there. And the water is very clear where it comes
So you see the
into.
building you took down, the septic feed from that building. It
There
didn't
was
have-
no septic.
So there was no facilities in that.
No,
building.
no.
Like,
This
it's
is-
just a shop.
No, but it's the historic like they would have had a cesspool when it was a butcher shop. 'Cause
No, it never had anything.
There was never any plumbing in the
No
building.
plumbing in that.
So it was like a barn.
It was just an outbuilding.
It's like the records room.
Okay.
It was just an outbuilding. It has never been used for 120
commerce.
years for anything.
Okay.
Yeah, this building has had it's had a
No
tree
running water,
literally
no
growing through it
facilities. Yeah, okay.
for.
Okay.
And
Did you get to save the tree? No.
the tree is still winning, I will
Yeah.
say, because it's still in the garage.
Well, in our house that we took, obviously the fire took it and it was rebuilt, so we did like a little.
Is your
tree
house
lawn.
my favorite house on North Street?
I don't know.
Is it the beautiful barn? It's so pretty.
White
Yeah.
house,
Yeah.
yeah. So we took,
Love that house.
so there was a tree from the pre-existing house that was growing into the foundation. We're always trying to like, take care of it. And then when the house went, I figured, okay, this isn't gonna be a problem anymore. And let me tell you, so we did like a little retaining wall by the, like one of the lower windows. And every year, I swear to God, it's from the same root, it just keeps coming.
Yeah, and that is what
And I
happened.
keep clipping it, and it doesn't matter what I do.
That is what's happened to the garage, because this started over at this other building and now it has moved to the garage.
The roots are just so prominent on
They're
those
so
super
big.
old trees, it's just like, it doesn't matter what you do.
And it literally will completely take up that whole backyard soon. It is, and I suspect it goes into, the house next door too, because I can see it.
And, I didn't call those folks, I know that personally.
No, but I mean, I think the roots, not in their house, but I think it like extends into their lot.
Right,
The
right, and
roots.
I mean, that's what was the demise of the records room, is the giant catalpa that, as stunning as it was just running right into the basement there.
I don't know anything, where was the records from?
It's still a little brick building up on Main Street.
Yeah, the one that used to be the bank?
Well, it's always been in our estimation, the records room is 15, and then the one on the very end of Founders was the bank, but
Okay.
yes, that is law.
And what happened to it?
We were able to get a grant to repair the entire basement, which was
Okay.
just this filled with water for 13 years.
Okay.
So, I mean, most of us are historic homeowners, so we know exactly where you're at, you know, and as such, we have resources. We have, you know, I know somebody, you know, give this person a call. So when you get stuck, it's always good to be able to call each other and say, I'm really stuck here. You know, what do I do? And we've got experts who come talk to you and just give us some ideas. I mean, that's what we're here for.
Yeah. Well, you have my number too, and
Candace, yeah.
we'll manage whatever
Thank you for coming in.
has to get managed, and
Yeah.
we're not sketchy people trying to get
No.
outside of the law.
And you've been a really good neighbor down on Cape Road, you know, everybody thinks highly of, you know.
We do our best to, you know, I think churches need to serve their community and shouldn't detract from them or take away from them. And
Yeah.
we've never tried to go outside of what is required or, and just do our best. But, you know, of this instance, I think Dan just had never taken the building down. Just never, he just had no idea that that was,
Yeah.
like, he's like, oh, it's just an outbuilding, we're just getting rid, we're not trying to build something, we're trying to get rid of it.
Right.
You know,
For safety.
yeah. All right, thank you guys, nice to have met all of
I
you.
appreciate you coming in.
Scanning those before and sending to Eric and Jeremy, we can decide what they want to do.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah.
I mean, to Jeremy's point, we're not, what value is there charging somebody $260,000 fine? That's not gonna be productive either. I think that you can hopefully have the conversation and now going forward that they have these other properties and can hopefully.
That is, definitely something to parking deck.
Be very mindful of.
There's a lot of.
And the town could bring action against the contractor.
Yeah, well, I mean, in terms of
That's
permitting.
that's what we would do.
In terms of the permitting, that's up to the building inspector commissioner, and I would agree with you.
Yeah, but he has insurance, like he knows, I just looked up his business records, like he's the 2025, he's trying to get his foot in the door, get started, he
We should be.
going bypassing the process intentionally so that
This
he's
is a
gonna do
recorded
the
meeting,
Yeah.
so let's just be mindful of not
Yeah, we'll go offline.
getting into.
Figure out sort of the details.
Yeah.
Okay, what else is on the agenda?
Yeah. So I think, let me find the agenda. But I have 1,210.
Well, I haven't asked if anybody is the least bit interested. Christina, you still with us?
Still here.
Amazing. This is a do if you wish, do if you have time. If not, no problem. I'm trying to get two things accomplished. One is to get quotes to move the weights and measures cabinet from Main Street into this building. So I have all the people to call. We're just gonna focus on piano movers. I don't know if anyone wants to take on that task and meet and grab a couple of quotes. The other is to paint the only cook shop. And again, it's pretty, if you have time, you wanna meet up with somebody.
Both of those, I need to request a prevailing wage schedule, and we need to make sure that we request a prevailing wage.
Okay,
Because 1,000% Jeremy will ask, and if the answer is no, everything gets ripped up and we start over, so.
okay,
We
so
have to,
whatever they.
I'll do it, I'll send you, basically, when you talk to me, you need to make it clear that it's a prevailing wage job, and we have a wage schedule we can give them.
So is anybody interested, and it's okay if you say no, because it's
Request those.
another thing I usually do, but. it's
I wish I
something
had
fun to
time,
get
but I don't.
Okay, I have negative.
Negative time, yeah.
I can find some time.
Which one do you want?
I don't know. Trying to make it on the most.
I think the painters are quick and easy,
Okay.
but the piano movers,
Mm-hmm.
to get that honking thing up here.
I got to see the honking thing before I.
Yeah, Dean's got photos of it.
We'd have to probably schedule a site visit to come.
Right.
And
Yeah,
we also probably need to have a conversation with Jeremy when he's back to confirm that they're on board with that
it's just
plan.
coming,
Where they
we're
want.
done.
Well, I do think he's a good steward of things, but we just,
Where's it gonna go over here?
I'm
exactly.
hoping upstairs. But he's on a long leave.
How heavy is it?
He's back next week, and then he's out again in the summer.
Okay.
Weights and measures, it's probably not super heavy, it's a large wood cabinet, it's gonna have to be disassembled or partially stabilized inside. I think the challenge is it's a very delicate, fragile object.
Why do you need a piano mover to move it?
Get out of here, really?
Just to make sure that it makes it here safely. It's got a lot of gears in the front.
Oh, it's,
Inside the cabinet, you've probably seen them in other town halls.
okay,
Every town tends to keep its weights and measures. Somehow it was given to the society
okay.
because they didn't want to hear. And I'm sure it was just because they were
See,
bringing the police department in here and then they were shuffling them out and, So, we will be the permanent owners with it being on loan back to the town until we can just
I do think,
sign it off.
yeah, so we should check in with him when he's back and have a conversation about what.
Okay,
You know,
can you press him that we need a
Next time I meet with
decision?
him, I'll bring it up.
Okay,
I
because
mean, at this point, there's no money available until November, unless we tell Ann in the next 3 hours to send in a placeholder.
I thought we did. the
I
last
don't know
meeting.
if we did, we should verify them with her, but she needs a placeholder tonight.
Oh, yeah, she does tonight. I saw that, yeah, that's it.
Cause I sent her something else, so I can do that, we can do that, so that's the intent, is that something we'd like to request from CPA funds on the Maytown meeting warrant? I'm
So,
gonna say ballpark, that
and we
number is
can't do
10,000.
admin funds for that.
No, but it's a project. Admin funds are for research, like if we were hiring an engineer to spec out what's involved in moving it, we could do that. But I can't imagine this is gonna cost more than 10, 20 grand, I hope.
No
So,
way.
to me, that's not a lot of money in the context of.
We did
you know,
not spend anything like that to move all of that crap
um,
up to the museum, so.
So I don't think it's a huge ask, we'll need to have a quote within the next month.
Yeah.
That's all. If we put it on the warrant, we have to.
Yeah.
Get us all.
Do you want to follow up and get it on the warrant?
Yeah, I can do that, I'll do
Or
that.
have her put a place?
This took me.
I just Googling what they look like, yeah.
We have a particularly nice one, I know the one in Oxford has been painted inside, so it, and we have these beautiful, like, huge weights that, you know, would have been used, like that cheap.
Yeah.
And all the little pieces, but maybe we can go up and pack all the little
You just
pieces.
remove the
You gotta
weight
feel
of measure.
What's that?
I said, I thought you were gonna tell me some.
Oh, no, no.
So how much does it weigh?
But I wouldn't trust the animal to
You know what, I don't think it weighs all that much.
Huh?
I don't think it weighs all that much. I think it's just too delicate.
I also be nervous about
You
leaving
take the
this
front
building,
door
this
off,
building,
take the bottom
and you want to
door
secure
off.
plastic
Take
over
the
it,
top off, take the stuff out, you know.
because there are
You think
once you break
users in
it,
this house,
You don't have cameras up there? Camera,
just in the
Not
hallways.
a regular mover.
and just like put a camera.
The only reason why we bought
Yeah.
cameras is because they would be delicate enough.
Oh, okay.
Or like fine art and
Especially in
antique.
the, so you do it in the big meeting room up there?
Yeah, there's cameras in the
Yeah,
hallways,
I
and
mean,
that's it in this building.
Piano's
And
expensive.
it's
too.
lots of changes, updates,
I think it's
expansions.
about
Exactly.
6 feet wide
The whole channel,
by
cameras in the building?
7 feet tall.
Wow.
Are you serious?
That's
The
big.
big old thing.
It's just,
What do you
there's so many projects.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then we'll
It's, you know,
order
there's
just the
just
plexiglass. and
Yeah.
You
So
don't need
you
school.
can't reach in and
So
touch
they don't
the
get
Right.
things.
And
I'm
Dan
not
will
saying it's just.
store all the heavy, Dan will store all the heavy weights in his office.
Well, I think, I was saying, I would like to see this, like, leave the doors open and screw a piece of plastic over it.
Yes.
And,
Right.
you know,
So
maybe,
don't,
maybe even purchase a display case for some of these other items.
okay, those screws.
Yeah,
Go over.
in some way mount so people aren't,
Yeah,
things
it's
don't
like,
walk.
what they can just
Yeah.
take and tension mount it in the plastic in there, but don't put those screws in there, split the wood.
Yeah, I guess.
So again, it's all work that needs to be done, you know, we need to just contact this,
yeah.
we can't,
Yeah.
we don't have the
So
resources.
I will give you the numbers that I collected, and then you just wanna call.
What if
and
someone
see
volunteered to
if
do
they
it?
can
Yeah.
I would be
Then-
hesitant.
away.
Then you could
Have to meet them all
Oh,
there.
yeah.
Personally, but she's saying if somebody volunteered to move it, I mean, a company would be one thing, but.
Yeah.
But also, again, I think to go to them and say, we need $5,000 for this, that's, we can
I
we
think
can
you can
handle
get
it.
it here for $1,000.
We have the money, we have.
But it has to put it prevailing wage, right? So
Yeah,
whatever that.
but if you're a sole proprietor, you don't have to pay for the minimum wage. All we have to do is notify them, it's up to the company to handle that in the way that they choose, and if they don't pay their people, that's, their people have a claim against them.
Mhm.
We just have to do our part of it.
So the parts that we could do is we could take all the little, you
We
know,
could, and that might
weights
be in
out.
conversation with the mover who might come look at it, I mean, you know, if somebody comes and looks at that and says, you have to disassemble this, I'm not sure we're qualified or have the time to do that, so I think we're looking for a white glove type service, but certainly the stuff that we can just take out and move, we can do.
Right, most of it is just the move, the only thing that moves in there is the actual, you know,
Yeah.
measuring.
I've never looked at it that close, and they just come right off.
It might, although I think at one point
Just screw
we,
that.
it was screwed from underneath.
It's probably screwed in
Yeah.
from.
The vertical is all the moving parts, so if that just unhooks, then you're fine.
Right, that would solve a lot of
We
problems.
use that art mover at Harvard to move our stuff out. When I get to work, if I remember, I will download their contact information, because they're just like, you know, Boston, greater Boston area based.
Right,
You get a
right.
quote from them. They just move fine art stuff. You know, we've had them move, like, I had to recarpet the dean's office, and they had to move the, exciting carpet, you know, like, but they had to move the desk and the historic furnishings and all the jazz, and they did a good job, and it was like, the price was, you know, it's probably around $5,000, you know, to move something like that.
Yeah,
They also had to store it while I did the carpet, so it might be less if they're just doing a one-shot move.
right,
Yeah.
I mean,
Or because it's such a small job, they may not want it.
Nah, they actually do lots of
Do they?
little tiny,
Okay.
like you've got a woo-woo painting and you need it, I don't know, or sculpture and
Yeah.
some other kind of, they do a lot of storage furniture.
Okay.
I'll send you the contact info and make a note to do it. And Mike could quote it.
So I did reach out to the guy on the stone wall, and I haven't heard back.
Kevin Baker,
I'm gonna.
you'll have
I'll
to
try
keep
again.
he's
Yeah.
in demand.
All right.
He may, even if he can't do it, he'll know somebody. He trains apprentices, so,
Yeah,
yeah.
definitely.
And I believe the takeaway on the painting is just that there's a line item for maintenance of town buildings, we just need to come up with quotes.
Okay,
You know, now if that quote comes back at $50,000, we have a problem, but
yeah.
As long as that
but we
quote
need
is
prevailing
affordable.
wage.
yes, so I will request a schedule for that as well. Again,
Facing outside.
yeah, if it's a single person, they can then not, they can quote
I
appropriately,
can't imagine it's gonna be fun to paint it myself.
Right.
that's on them.
At the same time.
We just, I guess Jeremy is very strict about following procurement laws to the T,
All right,
which is not a bad thing, but
well, we'll start with the people that did the,
I just know that's the first question on
the
this.
Daniels Farmstead. We got the name of the company that did that, and they're right in Blackstone, so, I mean, it's almost like, then we'll grab a couple more painters and see. And I'm sure they're familiar.
What color?
And you know what, to be honest, I wish we never painted it.
Which thing are you painting?
The only cook shop.
Perfect. I don't, I probably
I probably wouldn't buy it.
Probably walked with it and didn't even know.
It's on the corner of Warfield Road.
I wish we could take the paint off the historic museum. Guys, whoever paints that's really bad idea. But no, they should never have been painted. The brick can't shed water, so you're just destroying the brick. Like, people paint brick, I just want.
I know, it's just,
Well, they don't know better. It's masonry system is like, it's like the capillaries of the thing, and you can't paint it. It's like painting over your pores,
not a good idea.
So, okay, I found the name of this mover, and I'm going to. It's called Crozier.
So I think if we can close out some of these long-standing open
Yeah, I sent-
issues.
So I sent the contract to Brennan to do everything but the gutters,
Okay,
because we don't have an answer on the gutters and we're not gonna have time to research all that.
Bob said he went up and took a look at, no,
And you have.
he looked at the plans and he said there's no,
It's the other day. I haven't had, go away. I haven't had time to
you won't, will you?
look into the gutters, but I think from the very brief reading, anything that we do with gutters, we're gonna need to research what the gutters should be, defend that, send that to the state and say, here's what we're proposing, here's why we're proposing it, are you okay with it?
Yeah,
And they're not interested, like, we have to have specs and
right.
details.
Bob has done that before.
Yeah,
So he does historic gutters, and we also have, Ward Hamilton.
I think for these buildings, I would still like to push them to try and do something with the window project and do it all, because we should do the windows, the gutters, we need to, over there, the windows are drafty, we need to figure out a solution, and if that means restoration, that's fine, but we should get it
I
all
don't
done.
think the commission should take that on.
No, I'm in the town,
Yeah.
and we have 40,000 literally sitting there to hire an architect, I'm not clear
Right.
what we're
I
waiting
mean,
for.
We have no idea what.
I asked once,
Money
I'll ask, it's in an account, ready to go.
So it's still sitting, all right.
I asked one, actually, so here's, maybe I emailed you, do we have any ballpark on the total cost of the window project? I think Jeremy had asked that.
Did he say like 200,000? It would be in the meeting minutes,
All right, I'll dig,
if it's anywhere.
because I think unfortunately, there's a process the town has to follow to even select an architect depending on the scope of the project. And that's really where we need to probably start. If we can resume with that gentleman, I don't know if you were there, I think that was.
Are they replacing the windows or?
So in the town hall, all the windows are cheap replacement
Yeah,
windows.
plastic
They need
windows.
to be replaced with something more appropriate and functional. But next door, there's storms, but there are original historic windows, which obviously should be preserved, but we need to address the energy issue.
How many
There's
windows
a
are
great company out of Norfolk, but it's called the Window Girl, and she does all the historic restoration on the windows for like, she did the Crane Estate and, you know, like the trustees' properties. And it's nice, it's women-owned business.
Yeah.
She specializes in this, and they can do the R factor.
It would have to go out to bid though, and I think that's what we left off, who do we need to
Yeah.
hire?
But you can invite people to bid, right?
Yes, so
Yeah.
certainly, but I think step one is we need an architect to spec everything out, get the sign off from the state, because it's all preservation restriction, and be the project manager. Because this is a massive, we can't do this.
Yeah, well, it definitely.
No, we can't seem to even get an answer on just getting an architect line. We had some, we can't actually found somebody. And we were kind of rolling our eyes, and we met with the guy, and his wife's on the historic commission in some town, he was actually really good.
Oh,
But then Kim left and it never went anywhere.
I wonder if there's a record.
I have his info.
We record.
Yeah, no reason not to ask.
That was
bid.
That was an in-house.
Is that, so that would be to replace these and then to restore the library?
That would be my suggestion, is to do all the windows in town hall, take a look at the library windows, and then potentially do the
Could be
gutters
a
at
lot
the
more
same
than
time.
40,000.
That was just the engineering.
That's interesting.
And then there's another bucket of money that was for engineering for work interior that we don't even know what the work was.
But you're saying the only money that the town has to do all this is 40 grand?
No, I'm saying the town pre-approved 40,000 for the
For the
engineering to
engineering.
design this
Okay,
project,
gotcha.
and then did nothing with it.
You know, and
because
then you can
we
also,
just do.
you could invite the actual mill worker to bid the job, like
Yeah.
South Shore does this stuff all the time, they'll build the windows from scratch. And they'll do the engineering as well. So it seems like you just kind of need a request for proposals.
Right, but we need somebody to manage the project, and there's only one person, and there's too many projects, so. I think, right now the focus is the budget and the override coming and all that,
See what we're at.
schools,
Are we gonna do middle school?
No.
Okay, thank you.
budget. But yeah, I think, I talked to Brennan to get the inside stuff, so we get that done.
Okay, all right, great.
I think, I don't know if you saw my email, I just sent to Ann, I very briefly looked at only Cook. And I think that's like the same as the record room, I don't think we can just hire somebody I think we need engineering for that, in terms of the basement being wet, it's a fieldstone foundation, it definitely looks like water is.
Oh, I know, it looks exactly like my basement, I can
Is it like a
guarantee it.
French, like a French drain system in there?
Part of it.
Engineer.
Like if you,
My impression of that is, we can certainly try and call somebody to, we want somebody digging up next to a historic building and without engineering plans and,
No, listen, I was there when they did the whole old.
yeah.
There are drainage spouts, drainage around the building. The water is coming down the front of the building. It is splashing from that granite slab, and it's pouring in right in that one corner.
That's
So
the,
it's not
because
flooding
there
the
was,
whole
there was
thing.
mud in the floor of the basement. It looks like it's washing in from the corner of the foundation.
From that corner, it's all coming in from
That
there.
wasn't what the door was though.
Can you swale that maybe?
well, no, what you need, is, I'm doing this at my house this summer, is you need to dig out around the foundation, you need to lay the French drain and put a drip line,
Yeah.
and you need gutters. You just.
Well, there are gutters.
Yeah,
But you're
like the
saying
gutters,
there is a
the
gutter
gutters need to be at capacity, they're often
Because
under
that's
capacity.
Yeah,
So-
I don't think probably.
Yeah, if they're always under speccing the gutters, then you've gotta take the square footage of the roof and multiply it out
And
by
then
the
the
blah, blah,
second,
blah,
the
yeah.
gutters get filled
So-
with birds now.
Well, but then they also should be closed gutter, you know, you could use half rounds, you put the screening in there. And then with the corner capacity, it's like you need big capacity to handle the big rains that we get blowing off the west.
But
Like they put these baby gutters and I'm
in
like.
order to get that grant that we got
Yeah.
to restore that building, we had to install historic gutters.
Which you can
So if you
do.
go by there, you will
Yeah.
see the historic gutters.
They might be
Building.
just not big enough though, you know?
I wouldn't be surprised, but we also have a shingle roof,
Mhm.
cedar shingle roof. And the gutters run down and they go down the side of the building and they are connected
So they're shooting out.
way out.
Well, that's good because you don't want them connected
That is
close. Yeah.
It's all directed away from the
Just need a
building.
French drain system.
You just need the drip line with the French drain in it to get anything that's not being caught by the gutters and wick it away, feeding into where your
Right.
gutters are feeding, like so join it all together
Which
and.
could very well be done in that one area, but I mean, I definitely think that first order businesses seal that corner
Yeah.
so that we're not.
Well,
and
if we
then-
think that's the only issue, we can just attack that as a maintenance issue, we just gotta, again, we gotta find a contractor that can do it.
So you gotta be
Right.
really careful
Foundation.
sealing anything, because if you do negative side sealing, it will, the hydrostatic pressure on the corner of the building will just push it in further, it makes it
Right.
worse.
So
Right,
this is
you
what
have
The
to fix the
contractors
problem.
love to paint crap all over everything and
Right.
seal it, that's bad.
Verizon came in and did the initial repointing of that basement. So over time,
But what did he use when he repointed it? Did he
it had
use?
to be the right stuff because it was historic.
I don't know, cause I
restoration.
watched them do the grouting and, or the mortaring and stuff and,
Verizon.
the people that over at the record rooms, right? We're
No,
talking
no,
about-
no, no, no.
Oh, we're not talking about the record room.
This is only Cook, this is over.
Never mind then. Third old.
I mean, it sounds
talking
like,
about the records
So
room.
Philip Warbass was the architect.
Mhm.
He directed Veriga to do all the work in the only cook shop. So I can. bring
Yeah, I don't know the
specs
cook shop, I thought you were talking about.
well, I
the
think it
records.
would be better to
Yeah.
visit with a couple.
Yeah, the records room, I watched them do that and I told the contractor to bitch them out, they weren't wearing safety gear, they were using angle grinders on the historic brick, they were just
Yeah, have
using
them
some
give us- I mean, I
Depot
think
crap to
We
mortar.
need,
It was like,
we can't.
it's one thing to have a great plan,
We
it's
call
another
contractors,
thing
they
to
fix
do your due diligence and make sure
We
they
don't know
follow
enough to
it.
tell them
which-
what to do.
That's the, the
Right,
fail.
If we don't have a clear spec, then we're not getting clear quotes, and we'll never get funded.
right, okay, all right, so I
So I
will
think,
have
yeah,
the
if we- I
right-
mean, I'm happy to, if the guy's coming out and let me know, I'm happy to meet, or, if you have some time that we bring you over and get.
I have time usually.
My impression was it looked like water was coming in a different corner away from where the power panel is at the base. It seemed like there was a mud and there was like an inch of mud on the floor.
It could mean that there's a weak spot or you're getting washed in, but it's so tricky to manage. The water is like, water always wins.
So
If you
even-
don't channel the water,
Even the doorway, I think we really need a historic, experienced contractor to recommend the correct solution there, not just Joe Schmo contractor that does kitchens. That's not gonna help us.
No.
Even that, like, even just trying to figure out how to fix that door is like, it's not a lot of options that don't involve completely redoing it, which obviously we can't do.
Right. One of the parts about the only cook shop is the bricked floor
Yeah.
is, a porous
Basement.
surface. So some of what's washing in could be because of that.
Yeah, I mean, and that's, I guess, maybe I'm misunderstanding the problem. Because when I went there, it looked like the record room basement and that the basement is flooding. So if that's not the issue, then maybe we should go out there and look at it again.
So half of that floor has been concrete,
Yeah.
and the other half is bricked.
because what happens there though, is the concrete is way harder than the brick. The brick is usually soft
Right.
and old, and that's good.
Yeah.
But the concrete is super, super hard. And what happens is the water wants to go to the place that is the easiest for it to get into, so it goes to the soft brick. So whenever you use concrete in an old building, you're just creating you're basically destroying all the other materials by over hardening.
Right.
And so then if you can remove the concrete, that's like the ideal. It's never gonna happen, but they did that in my basement too, they pour concrete everywhere, so now I have ridiculous like water infiltration, because it used to be that when the water would come in, it would saturate the brick or the dirt or whatever, and then it would evaporate. It creates a large surface area, and that would evaporate off because there was ventilation.
Yeah,
But whenever you seal harsh things, then it just pushes the water into the softer, like the soft space.
yeah,
And so it's like, it's a really tricky thing to manage the hydrostatics in the basement. Like, where is the water going to go? Because it is going somewhere.
right,
Yeah.
it's always going somewhere.
Yeah, it's always like, maybe you need a sump pump.
Usually where
you
you
know,
want it to go.
Yeah, well, if you can channel it into a sump and then just pump it out, that's like usually the easy button solution, you know, but the water table is so high in parts of Mendon, you go to dig a sump and it just fills right up with water, like a little baby well.
Detention pond right there.
Yeah.
We should go out and look at it
Yeah.
closely, and I think, again, we're not putting any on the warrant for this, so. I think at this point, it's either a minor fix or a major fix. And again, there is money available for small stuff.
Just need to get this stuff done.
Yeah,
The sump is probably your
So
cheap,
big.
easy
we
fix.
just, we
Put a
can't,
sump in there.
I mean, we can't put anything on the warrant without solid numbers, so we just get ripped to shreds and told,
Yeah.
go away. So,
Yeah, just do a
Really
simple sump, but we've channeled
Figure
it.
out another point.
It's not enough water or something.
yeah, my impression of it was there's not any imminent threat to the building, it's just a matter of maybe sealing up.
But the
top of
sump
it.
pulls up the water table water.
So
right?
when
So
it
you might
rains
not
really
see
hard,
it.
the sump will rise and the float will kick on and pop it out, you know?
Is the French drainer on the outside of the building like prop, like a? Did somebody, who put the French drainer on it?
I don't know who did the French drain.
So I feel like it wasn't done right and.
Well, there's an elevation change too. Remember, the front of the building is this height, and it
Yeah.
takes all the road runoff.
I've never actually gotten out of my car and like walked around and like, I feel.
Try to take pictures, but I don't
Can you
think-
have a lawyer in this random property in a neighborhood? This is
The,
so
the
front.
cost-effective way I've had the French drains put in is I just hire a septic contractor. And I've used a couple because the septic person understands how the ground perks and they understand how to pitch everything.
That's why I was thinking like a swale or something, like or something you need to divert,
Yeah,
I don't know.
which is also a possibility. I mean,
Yeah, a septic engineer can draw
Yeah.
out. And sometimes they do a better job than that's their job to manage flow of fluids of all sorts. Sometimes the architects and they actually
They
don't
don't
do a very good
Yeah,
job.
yeah.
Even hardscaping architects, because that's
Yeah,
not their
I
business.
agree.
Yeah.
we need to walk around because I know that there is a pipe
There is a pipe that comes out,
with.
'Cause I see it with the
mesh on
mowing.
end.
yeah, it's like green plastic, and it's got like weird mesh in it. I know, cause I see when we're mowing, yeah, so that's the drain.
Sometimes those get like, if
But
they
it's like
weren't,
plastic,
yeah, like if they weren't,
collapses.
they collapse, they get clogged, like they need to be maintained. French drains need to be
I'm
maintained.
trying to go over there and see if there's water coming out of it.
The plastic
should be
ones
now.
are crap and they collapse all the
They do.
time. We use the iron ones and.
Those are nice.
Yeah, they're not, they cost a little, yeah, but it's like pay me now, pay me later.
Right,
Yeah, so.
All right, we'll get to the bottom.
but I see them like in properties all the time, people try and they're just like clogged up.
It's just they use that chintzy corrugated plastic with the plastic peanut wrap around it,
Yeah,
like what
You don't like that.
the? Wait, it ain't gonna last, you know?
It's
just
certainly not historically appropriate.
No, they still make the clay perforated pipe, you just have to order it. There's one company in
Yeah.
the Midwest, and they'll ship it to you, which I'm doing this summer.
No way.
Yeah, no, I'm like digging out all around the house and laying the pipe is, there were trees right up against the house. So they like grew into the brick and
Oh, yeah.
the tree was against the house for so long, it ate the border marker, the granite marker. It's inside the tree, the tree stump. Yeah, I'll take a pic, it's crazy.
Wow.
So what else?
What's next on the agenda?
Yeah, it's getting late.
It's getting late.
Are there any other projects? The record room, only cook, I guess I've read the letter twice. I do have a new thing I put on here, the paddock property.
Okay,
I think there were some emails, I don't know who was on them. So, and this is something too to keep in mind for demo delay. The town purchased the house and barn at 75 Providence Street. One of the, so next to the Kingfield Memorial.
Do you have a picture of it
Yeah,
on your
I-
computer?
Oh, really?
It's an old barn, the newer house. And I believe at the time, the thought was to try and preserve it. I think they, it certainly has some, the barn is historic, but they really wanted the property for future affordable housing, and, or recreation, sorry.
what's the date on the house?
I don't know, hang on. Can we do this first?
What's the address?
75 Providence,
So what is the town looking to do? Knock it
Hang on.
down?
no. We find there was a.
That
emails.
right before, oh, yeah.
Yeah, but it's before you turn off the road, so.
So as best we
Yeah,
can
just
tell,
sign it. Yeah,
Yeah.
drive by. Yeah, just so bad with
I've
the addresses.
been in,
Just for
Yeah.
a turn.
and
So-
I'll say the barn needs a lot of money invested into it.
yeah, so let me go through the whole situation. So the barn most likely dates to the 1850s. It was part of a historic house. The historic house burned. The house was rebuilt. We think it's dated 1980. For some reason, it's listed on Macris, but we're not really clear why, because at that point, this house was there. Anyway, the date for the assessors have is 1980
Of this house?
of the White House.
But there's asbestos flooring in it, and it's not really 1980-ish.
No, it's
I-
from 1970.
I think it was rebuilt. I mean, that's what they have.
Yeah.
It was a time with a totally ugly little house now.
No, let me
Sorry.
look at this first, one thing at a time.
So they're not gonna try to salvage the house.
Why?
1960,
Yeah, 1960 is the
60
worst
makes
year.
sense.
that's the date the
That's
assessors
the
have.
They just
asbestos flooring.
Probably plastered it with asbestos.
The question here, the town purchased it, they're looking at it for affordable housing, they are in the process of writing an RFP for the property, and I believe the idea would be to renovate this house potentially into 1 to 2 units. It's almost a 2-family, the basement's kind of set up that way. The hope was to salvage the barn. John Erickson looked at it, the barn is not good. It's not necessarily even safe to walk in,
It needs new timber.
it's bad.
The town overpaid for that.
Um,
I wish they would have bought
But how many
the
acres
property on
did
the
we get?
corner of 16.
The whole property
Yes.
It's 41.5 acres. So anyway, the request for us is, this property is not subject to demolition delay bylaw because the assessor's records have it as 1960 and that's what was used.
Right.
However, technically that barn might be something we care about. So Dylan is writing the RFP and asked if historic had any considerations, concerns, or anything regarding this barn that wants to be included, or I guess the house in this RFP.
Yeah.
My thought was that,
Just not being.
the problem is if we say in RFP, they have to do demo delay bylaw, it's gonna scare off any prospective bidder, and we're writing an RFP that's a waste of time. So I think, do we hold a hearing now for it? Do we put it on the inventory? Or do we come up with what our conditions are for the renovation of this barn?
Well, we should.
Can you offer
take
a
look at it.
credit for the renovation of the barn?
Well, I think the idea is that the RFP is gonna say, you have to,
Like
one of
refigure the
your units needs to be in this location, in the style of the barn, use as much as you can. The facade, preserve as much of the facade as you can, obviously get the interior. That is a condition we could say, that's, it's our bid, they would do whatever we want. It's just whatever those things are. And I didn't remind them, but I'd asked them maybe to sign on, so we don't have to necessarily decide now, but I think they're looking to move on this and put it out to bid. I think the hope is to
Do we
do
have a
10 to 20.
timeframe?
I would say, I don't have a specific date, but I would say within the next few months, they want to go out to bid on this. I think the goal is I'm just ballparking like 6 to 10 units of housing on this property with additional structures in some fashion. Basically we have all this money set aside for only affordable housing and we need to use it on
How
something.
are they gonna put 6 to 10 units, are they gonna come around the other
I have
side?
no idea.
It's gonna be tricky because contractors right now are not, this isn't a
Right.
great, this is a bad economic environment
know
for contractors.
we got some sort of a grant from CMRPC, they looked at it, they had some proposals, I don't know what they are. You know, but I guess the question is, if we wanna put any conditions on this barn, now's our opportunity to say something, because as written, it's exempt from delay.
I mean, you guys should go out and take a look at it. It definitely has some chestnut beams, if I recall.
I mean,
Yeah.
yes.
You know what those chestnut beams would be great, is in the only cook shop.
I was gonna say maybe they could take, if they're gonna take it down, let's pull
Salvage.
some timber out and restore it, or salvage it and put it in a
Right.
different building.
And the boot shop, the 10-footer across the street, that little red shop.
I think the only challenge is when you go into a barn like this, it clearly has a lot of termites, right? So now you're gonna take it out, I think there's a process that the timber needs to go through before putting it into a home. That's gonna have to get like kiln dried.
They have
So
to
they-
film it.
Yeah.
The 10-footer, that little shop is, if you look at the foundation, the sill is completely rotted.
Yeah,
And it would be great to salvage some of these materials for some of these older
Yeah.
structures.
and then the question is, well, where does the town store it? Cause there's a lot to salvage, so where's the town store it?
I don't think I'd salvage everything,
No, not,
but
but still, you're not gonna use
Maybe-
just 10 feet of
maybe we
timber.
could sell.
Well, that's what I was gonna say, I would say like, okay, well, the town wants this many board feet of blah, 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 and of treated timber, and the rest is yours, you know, like, figure out how many board feet you need, maybe you wanna do the floor of the records room, maybe you wanna do the cookhouse, whatever you wanna do, figure out how many board feet you need, and then just go from there.
I know, yeah, like the architectural salvage companies come out. and just
Right,
take
right.
it. It's like, look, you know.
There's really termites, I have yet to see any termites here, where are the termites? Yeah, I don't see any.
You see them? There, oh, yeah.
The barn is long.
It's because it gets.
They
so
not,
cold.
usually they
The
don't
barn is-
want you
I
to
think you
see
go
them,
away.
that's not their
Go
goal.
back.
I mean, I see woodworm.
You don't see termite, you've never seen
No,
termite.
No, not in any place I've been in Massachusetts.
I've done it, it's just not ideal.
Yeah.
I've never seen
Tennessee,
a lot,
I
like
would
the
just
stills
look
and stuff
from
from their
the
homes.
side
Ah,
Yeah.
I have keys.
well, they
in
just
the
not
house.
wet, but you know,
in the,
Tennessee, I
in the
get,
downside.
okay, there's a property
I think you
down
have to
there
walk
that
around, there's
where
like
my
a
family
door
has,
that's-
but
Right,
And the house that we're in
which one
before,
you mean.
you know, before the fire, we had to lift up the house, because we had renovated it, we lifted it up and we had to replace a bunch of the cells, because they were, the termites.
I have dry rot and I have some woodworm, but
We
I
had-
haven't termites.
Termites and carpenter ants, and then we had to have the stakes around the house for the termites. And then actually another property that we had, it was 60s, had termites.
Yeah, well, they like their new wood because it's such crap.
Yeah.
Sorry.
I don't know if that's what it is, but.
Well, no, it's soft, like the rings on the new trees are really far spaced apart, and so there's
Right.
a lot of cellulose for them to
Yeah.
get into, whereas the old wood is all these hard
It's
rings,
tight,
yeah.
But no, we do see quite a bit of color termites.
I'm gonna have to look out, I'll put a ground stake in. see if I can catch them.
Usually like,
I wonder if
when
it's,
you're looking at the sills, sometimes you see like, just like little like wood dust around, and that's usually a good sign, and then,
and they're not beetles, they're termites.
no, they're termites, and then, you know, like when the inspector's out, they'll usually be able to identify it, they'll like
Do a punch
Literally.
test.
put their finger through it, and like, all right, so what do we have, right, what is the test here, but usually.
I wonder if they like the sand, you know, there's like sand quarries back there, I wonder if they like the sandier subsoil.
Probably,
Yeah.
makes sense.
All right, so do we want it, does everybody want to go over and take a look at the barn?
Yeah, I would say, I mean, take a look at it, if you decide to enter.
All I can tell you is the best way to learn is to start walking into these places and.
I wouldn't recommend
it.
walking, I wouldn't recommend.
No, I wouldn't go on the upstairs floor, but we can go into the basement
Yeah,
and look
yeah,
at the beams.
Go up.
And we can.
It's not the
look at
worst.
The garage door and we can
You just
look
never
at the
Yeah.
ceiling structure or the roof structure.
You never know.
I mean, I'm pretty sure there's still like wooden pegs in there.
But I think that's kind of the ask is what conditions do we have on that? If someone were coming to us and saying they want to demolish it, what are we telling them? Because I think
Salvage timber or salvage?
it can't be saved, but I think if we can at least give them some guidance and say, we really want, regardless of whatever else you do on the property, we'd really like at least one unit to be in that style. I mean, that's my thought, is in that style of that, at least, reuse what you can.
Why not try and push it for all the units?
Yeah, if you could just say we want the architecture to be in keeping with the period in
Yeah,
which the
now
project.
the whole area is gonna like
Well, I think that's gonna be up to
Then it
Jordan and
becomes
the rest of the town.
subjective too, they're like, it looks like.
It's not an historic district.
Are they gonna do like duplexes or
I have
something?
no idea. None whatsoever.
There was talk of that.
Dylan was
But
gonna
there's
try
no
and
room.
call into our meeting. I think the idea was you do something in the front, you have the middle available for potential recreational use, and then you have a stream crossing and open space that blocks, keeps buffer from the people back there. But really it was because the subdivision was proposed and they wanted to try to preserve it.
Right.
40.
Let's see if we can schedule a time when everybody's free and available. Is there a good time?
If I know far enough in advance,
No, this is-
it's just about.
And what does the town want to do, 40Bs?
8 to
Friendly
9
40 Bs
afternoon, yeah,
of some fashion.
Saturday afternoon,
yeah.
a Saturday
A
afternoon
Saturday afternoon, okay.
in April.
But I
In
can,
April,
I'll
'cause I'm scheduled.
I'll find out if I can get some information from Dylan.
May, I mean, if it's not a pressing
Well, like,
issue.
the last week in April or maybe first week of May,
I'll ask that about, if we can condition the
just an
whole
idea.
property to be.
Where it's not raining and it's nice and it's beautiful.
Not snowing or.
No, it ain't snowing. It's not running in the
It's
Probably get, the neighboring butters to not complain as much about it.
Yeah, I mean,
They make it
Yeah,
not
they-
so ugly.
nobody's bidding on 52, I think they've tried it twice now. So I think they're gonna try something over here instead and see if we can get it here, like you
What is
said.
it,
Nobody's
52
building,
Providence?
Yeah. nobody's building anything right now, so.
Well, no, it's really like with the fuel prices and the timber prices and it's not a good time to build. And also the rates are very high and they're not
Yeah.
low, there's no leveraged money right now at all.
Right.
So if you don't have cash, and if you have cash, you're not doing that.
Well, and it's, we have no water and sewer, so why would you waste money on this when you can do the same thing in Milford with water and sewer and save yourself thousands?
Could they change the zoning there,
So-
like, anything different?
Well, it was bought with CPA money, so it's restricted unless we unwind that purchase and pay for it some other way.
I wish they'd buy that lot on the corner. Why don't they buy the bloody lot? Like, that's when you drive into town, that's what you see. The
Yeah.
elementary school is across the street, so the message to children is, Mother Nature like this, put some crap over here.
Just make it a park.
Yeah, it should be a beautiful park for the children to enjoy.
Some of what I heard is people, it wasn't clear that they were retaining the corner when that whole thing happened all back in the day.
Yeah,
it's a long
time ago.
But
Somebody needs to go back into that and buy the town needs to buy that lot. They're not gonna make any money putting a subdivision.
Not gonna happen, he's gonna
Well,
build
the corner is done and sold and designed and just waiting for the shovels.
Yeah, but that's the thing is,
Is that
okay,
gonna be a bank?
okay, it's supposed to be Dean Bank,
over there.
but there's no
The
one
corner of
goes
the
to
two
banks.
banks.
Like, I'm across from that other bank, this is the bank right there, a bank right here, a bank right there. And they're just asset holding, cause when was the last time you went into the physical bank?
I do go in almost.
Well, I haven't been in a bank in 4 years, like, I don't care,
I get close, I'm at the ATM, it's like attached to the bank, does that count?
Yeah, I mean,
Right?
It's just, yeah,
it's gonna destroy the value of everything in the.
Yeah.
But then again, it's been a blighted vacant lot for 30 years, that hasn't been any better.
yeah.
I think that they'll price up
Okay.
developing that
Disagree.
in this environment and be like,
That's
oh,
been a vacant lot for 30 years.
Yeah, so whenever they tore that house down, it's been at least 20 years.
But
Yeah.
Yeah.
I just can't see a cost benefit on developing that. It's just,
Well, same as, who, they built that whole warehouse, it's empty
Yeah.
Well, they're trying to get it, it's not they're
Millions.
leasing it.
Yeah,
Trying.
they built it on spec.
Yeah, because
You
gas
go
prices
find a
are
little
great
difference,
for
like-
warehousing and shipping right
Yeah.
now. I mean,
I mean, that's all recent though.
It's so like an alien launch pad.
well, then there's another one in Bellingham, and there's another one in
Oh, no.
Milford that's empty. They're just like.
Lots of warehouses.
It's like a husk of
And
stupidity.
It's
And what are
wild.
they gonna do with the mill that they tore down? Every day I drive by that, you know, like, do you guys ever drive by there? The Draper mill that they tore down,
Oh,
down, it's
Oh,
like a barren
yeah.
waste.
Oh, that's awful.
And I always think, why? Like, why do they just want the building?
Somebody said,
I think
put a small
the
and-
rumors I heard is that there was a push to potentially do some sort of eminent domain on the property, and that finally forced the property owner into action. I know there was lawsuits involved.
Oh, yeah, the property owner was mad at the town
I think
hotel. He's gonna keep it like Patty said.
Is that what's going on? He's just gonna let it be a wasteland?
Yeah.
Nice.
Well, I think he had.
It's alien then, it's straight, it's the cold.
Is there anything else for the meeting? I know just signage,
When is our
bylaws,
next meeting?
districts,
Oh, we didn't even talk about the
yeah, we looked at some
That's okay.
signage stuff, but I think.
district signs.
I'm done, I'm tired.
Yeah, I left at work
I don't
at
have
6
to.
o'clock this morning.
The AI signs, listen, it's cool, we'll table it.
I
Yeah,
mean,
we'll pick it up next.
does it seem like Mondays work?
I can use
I mean, tentatively, so Parks is gonna meet again the 27th, we could meet that night, I just don't know.
Mondays usually work for me.
Let me see when it's playing, we might have a location problem, but that's not the end of the world.
whoever it is, keep him on.
We might have to go to the library.
Why, who's got this one?
Actually, Joanne's talking about cultural, do you know when this cultural meeting? In April?
Wait, there's culture? What? Sorry.
Are you on cultural
Yeah.
commission?
Can't remember.
Yeah, I'm not sure where it would get from.
Sorry.
But we can move to the library, don't worry about that.
Yeah, that's easy.
Yeah.
I think it's.
Some cultural committee, them.
Oh, yeah, sure. So we can meet, the 27th is, I mean, that's the next Monday I have available for a bit, so
April 27th?
30th, the 6th, and the 27th. I wanted to put that on the books, and I guess the 7 work.
All I know is that's getting close to finals, maybe.
Might have to be upstairs, but that's
Are
okay.
you taking any?
Yeah, actually, I'm almost done with my MBA. I've got 3 classes.
So is that, are we good then to adjourn?
Yeah.
I think we're good to adjourn.
All right, so somebody wants
We're wiped out.
to make a motion, just like a stop them.
Stop recording.
No longer
And-
momentous.
9:14, all right.
Yeah, we gotta get these down.